Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and in today's episode, Sona and I will be breaking down the seventh episode of Dexter Resurrection, an episode called Course Correction. Sona, how did you like this episode of TV?
I enjoyed it. I think I liked last week's better. I have this memory in my head of you saying they didn't release the last portion of episodes to critics, and maybe there's a reason why that is not a good reason. And so I think I'm like a little bit concerned about this part of the season living up to the very high bar that's been set by the first part of the season. But I still enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, solid episode. I love the ending. The ending was hysterical. What did you think?
Yeah, I have the same qualms you have, but also the enjoyed it still. It has all the things that I've liked in the season up until now, although, this is a pretty preposterous situation and it is, these pieces have to fit together somehow at the end. And as often is the case with all of these Dexter seasons, coming up with a satisfying season conclusion has not always been successful. So I kind of take it all with a grain of salt. I think this is working still better than most seasons of Dexter. So I'm still enjoying it for sure. And intrigued by where the story is going to go, honestly. And we can speculate on some of that in this very episode. A couple of things I wanted to ask you before we get going. One is, did you watch any of Platonic?
I watched all of Platonic.
Oh, I have not seen the...
Not all, because it's not all available, but right. I watched everything that's available.
Great. How do you like it so far?
I'm enjoying it. I see what you mean in that the first season, the first few episodes were hilarious. Right. And really, really, the jokes just kept on coming. Here, they do seem to have slowed the pace of that a little bit, but I still really like it.
Yeah.
I'm still interested in the story. I kind of was actually disappointed in how the first season ended because I felt like they were saying there was a time and place for this friendship and that time and place has passed. And now it's time for them to grow up and live their grown-up lives. So I'm enjoying that they have kind of revived the idea of an adult man and woman who have known each other for a very long time, having a strong platonic friendship.
Yeah, I think it's very fun. I haven't seen the third episode. I was on vacation, by the way. And anybody out there who listens to us regularly, I did start recording an episode on Alien Earth. I do plan to publish it at some time, but it was very inconvenient. I was just talking about this with Sona off mic, but it was a very, very long drive to where we were going. So it ate up literally whole days. So I have not been able to publish it. And I may not be able to publish it until close to the third episode, which will drop next Tuesday. But it's on the way, I promise. And just a little bit other piece of news is that the series Smoke, which ended very strangely this week. If you want to hear my reaction and Darren's reaction to that, check that out. We'll publish it probably Sunday night and maybe have some conversation about Alien Earth as well at that point. But all that is to say that I hadn't caught up on everything that I would normally be watching. I have not seen the third episode of Platonic, but very much enjoyed it so far. And I agree. I guess with season one, they didn't even know if it was going to come back for another season. It wasn't guaranteed. So that kind of tone that you mentioned, Sona, that it felt like possibly this would be them moving on with their lives, and kind of the end of that friendship was maybe leaving that option open to end the season, the series there if they need to. But of course, it's back for another season. They want to keep this relationship with Seth Rogen going, considering they've had a few successes with him, and of course the huge success of the studio. But yeah, I'm very much enjoying it so far. And I think they're pacing themselves. Like I mentioned, they are now not just kind of putting all the jokes they could possibly imagine into the first 3 or 4 episodes and then running out of steam a little bit. They've probably done a more thorough job of plotting things out for this season. But those first two episodes are very funny. Like a couple of gags there that were very funny. The LSD and the glass of champagne and dumping out the ceremonial dumping out of the champagne so that they could prevent people from drinking it potentially. Although it didn't quite work. But yes, enjoyable for sure so far. The other bit of news I wanted to mention is that Task, which we'll be covering here after Dexter. There's 3 more episodes of the Dexter series. And Task, just as predicted, Sona, the very week that Dexter wraps up, Tasks begins. So we will have perfect segue from one
Super convenient.
series into the other with no overlap, which makes it easier for us to hopefully get these episodes out in a more timely manner. Okay, so episode number 7 called Course Correction. So that I don't think it's a course correction for the series. As a matter of fact, it might be a little off course here, but these different elements of the plot are starting to gel, and I am very curious to see how they all coalesce here in the end, if they are successful with it. So first of all, the next big activity for all of our remaining serial killers, some of them already have moved on past this mortal coil, but they are on this helicopter and flying out to where? Do you know where this is? Where do they fly out to?
I don't know where it is. I don't think I took a good look at it. I am curious. It was beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I was like, is this somewhere where maybe this is where the Roys are staying? They should have a little crossover with Succession, possibly.
Maybe.
This could be interesting. Could you imagine the Roys popped up there on the other side of the hedge?
Well, there was a crossover with my real life because I'm almost 100% sure certain of the scenes at school were shot at my law school.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yep.
So they do head out to this beautiful location. Prater is very upset because he's disturbed by the fact that Mia has died. Seems sincerely upset about this, although they are the ones who killed her.
Yeah, I mean, he delivers that news to everyone, which, first of all, I was kind of surprised it wouldn't be on the news since she was like this known serial killer.
Right.
But he delivers this news to everybody. And then it's like, and here's this amazing buffet with caviar and the best wine. Enjoy.
By the way, that's one of the things that might be worrying in him, not just his relationship with her, but possibly that, there wasn't as many of the serial killers being murdered themselves or dying themselves in the course of these previous gatherings. So I do wonder if the whatever subreddit where these serial killers rank their weekends, they're sitting there going like 2 stars, excellent charcuterie board, but everybody kept killing each other off. It was a little awkward.
Probability of surviving is low.
Very low. Let's just see if anyone even reviews the weekend by the time this is all done. Then we have to do our show and tells. We see Al's presentation, right? Finally, I don't know why. Let me just talk about it for a second, describe it. But he has a GoPro. He, I guess, pretends to get injured on his bicycle. This is the way that he lures these helpful pony-tailed girls to help him out. And then he chokes them out. He apparently is squeamish about blood, so he likes to choke them instead. And then he steals their ponytails. For some reason, maybe because of the whole GoPro setup of this, this was the serial killer that bothered me the most. I guess just having to be viscerally watching this murder take place.
Yeah, it was rough, especially with all the giggling.
Yes, right. He likes to giggle while he's.
Eek.
Yeah, this is very creepy. And it does, probably raise questions more than the show even intends to. But you think about how he must be in this. In his relationship with his family. And of course, this is what he's doing on the side. Creepy to say the least. And then it's time for Dexter to do his Dark Passenger performance. This was actually very funny. I like how he tries on the different personas in the mirror for himself, first of all. He does like the dead-eyed psycho thing. He tries to do like the bro. They tell me anything I want, bruh.
It was funny, and it explained how he came to the character that called the police with Lady Vengeance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Remember that New York accent that he was doing? We never really discussed it, but wow, he went over the top. So now I can see where that exists inside him.
There are so many questions for me that supposedly this billionaire with all these resources and has somehow kept this all secret for so long. Have really not done their due diligence in, even if this guy doesn't like being on social media, there's got to be pictures of him when he's younger or something to compare to Dexter. And even if they vaguely look close to each other, who he would look very much like? Dexter, who's been in the news numerous times. Like they literally have like a story about him up in upstate New York when he was shot and almost killed. So, it wouldn't be too hard to find a face match for this particular character. And of course, the fact that his New York City accent is missing is also another thing that doesn't quite make sense. He should have just been doing that New York accent the whole time. That would have been much more entertaining for sure. But of course, it's time for him to do his big show. So he decides to not lie. That's the way he's going to do it. He just calls himself the Dark Passenger. Of course, he's already called himself that in the past. And he talks about the mask slipping off. And who is the puppet master? Is he the puppet master? This face, the controlled version of himself who is restraining the killer, or is the killer in the background actually his puppet master? So deep thoughts, Sona, deep thoughts.
Deep thoughts punctuated by a reminder that he is, in fact, Red Schmidt.
Right.
Every 10 seconds or so, he manages to work that into the monologue that he's doing.
It's very funny. It's like the AI wrote that, like he used an AI chatbot to write this for himself. And it's just saying, or am I the puppet master, Red Schmidt? Or just insert name.
Yes.
A couple of interesting points here, though, was the a detail I completely forgot, where he is talking to his ghost dad about this whole situation and what he's going to do, and maybe honesty is the best policy and all that preview. But he's also mentioning how he needs to work things out with his son so he can be present for him. His son's going to go on some college tour. He's hoping, like, oh, I hope these events don't drag out too long because I have to get back in time to go be with my son. And he's having this whole, internal monologue with his ghost dad. And the detail I'd forgotten is that his dad killed himself, right? And pretty much seems that
I'm so happy you said that, because I had forgotten that too.
Yeah.
And I thought, what kind of Dexter podcaster am I if I had forgotten that very major bit of information?
And yeah, and it's a big, we've talked about how his dad, obviously felt some guilt about, and whether this was the right choice or not with Dexter. And that is a huge aspect of it, right? If he reads that correctly, that his son did, that I should say that his father killed himself. And I don't remember exactly the details of that. I think it came later in the show, but he, of course, internalized that to be definitely he did it because he saw, I think recently he had seen his son's handiwork, and he then shortly thereafter killed himself. And of course, Dexter blamed himself for this, that it was his dad seeing the consequences of his actions. But that does kind of taint the whole idea of this version of his dad in his head, which is still coaching him when maybe his dad, had a, full understanding of what he's done to this damaged person by the time he killed himself.
Maybe his dad was ambivalent in the end. And, he wants to, ghost dad wants to keep his son safe above everything else, which is logical if you accept that he cannot be stopped from killing people, which is, the primary issue here.
It's still this open question here as to how we explain that. And once again, maybe we're not supposed to take it that seriously, but I still want to at least play with the idea that can we believe that Dexter might not be as sociopathic as we think, because we see it here again eventually when there is that presentation about serial killers and sociopaths, that the whole idea that you would have a Jiminy Cricket in your head telling you what's right and wrong does not make any sense if you were a serial killer. But like I said, I don't know if the show is trying to explain to us that he is evolving or that this is just purely a contrivance because it's more, watchable to have this internal dialogue, and also gives him some sense of morality.
I don't know if it's necessarily evolving as much as it is recognizing maybe who he always was when he actually thinks about it on his own terms and not what's been told to him by his father.
Right.
I mean, you do see how uncomfortable he is watching somebody else kill, and even the idea of sharing these things because these people don't have that moral code that he has. I mean, that it comes from somewhere. I don't know. I think, they're doing these flashbacks with him. I think it was in the previously on segment of you're not, he's telling his son, you're not like me, your heart is different or whatever it might be. But I am not willing to accept that yet. I think maybe they are the same, but it's being treated differently. And the
Yeah.
outcome is that's different, right?
And yeah, and I think that they tease again here the whole, situation with the landlord. And I don't think that that's going away yet. Of course, because you also cast somebody who's recognizable from The Sopranos in that role as well. So you assume that this guy's probably
Mhm.
coming back in some way. And then the question becomes, what's still left there as far as will he, whether it is an emotional killing or not, is that still a direction he may go in? And then that opens up that question, like you mentioned, like what is the question of whether he is like his dad or not, and in both ways, right? Is he a truly? I mean, he's murderous, so we know that that's the case. But then, does that make him a sociopath or not? And then, is there a different alternate route for him?
Yeah, by the way, two things. One, on the landlord situation, she just needs to sue him, first of all. I mean, there are landlord tenant regulations and he
Mhm.
is violating those. So, she should just sue him. But whatever. That's very easy for me to say sitting here. I understand. To get back to the bigger point, I still am not totally clear on when we see Ghost Dad Harry,
Mhm.
whether we are seeing truly what Dexter thinks Harry would have said, or a different dimension of Dexter's personality that
Right.
he is channeling through this idea of his dad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm saying that I'm reading it that way, that it is some aspect of Dexter, which then negates the fact that he would be truly a sociopath, because a sociopath could not envision that, or at least be motivated by that. For example, feeling guilty that dad would say this to me, so maybe I shouldn't act that
Right.
way. That seems anathema to what a serial killer would do.
Right.
That would never cross his mind. If it did, it wouldn't change his decisions. So that's the aspect of it. But maybe it's an actual ghost, Sona. I would love that, actually, if they just
Oh my
embraced it
God, that would
straight
be
up.
amazing.
It's like, Dexter, I am your ghost dad.
The next version of Dexter.
Oh, Dexter, Ghost Dad. Could be Ghost Dexter, right? If he had died, he could have be,
Right. And maybe
killing the
he and
ghosts of
Harry are
serial killers.
together in the afterlife
Right.
talking to Harrison, and
They're
Harrison is
watching
like, my
Harrison, and
God.
Harrison's like, "Get away from me!" So when he's rehearsing his speech and his ghost dad's there and everything, before the actual presentation, I found it interesting that first of all, Uma Thurman. I mean, I like Uma Thurman in general. Not giving good performance here, I have to say, or maybe being directed to be more, to make some strange choices. But when she walks in and he's rehearsing, she has this weird attitude towards him. She seems to just have this generic performance style where when the killers are around, she is just disgusted by them. But then when
Agreed.
he is actually doing his shtick, his performance, she seems to. How did you read that? She's empathetic towards him. What is she? What is she conveying there to you?
I'm thinking about this. I focused on a lot of people's reactions in that scene, but I don't remember focusing on Uma Thurman's. I do think, generally, not talking about that specific scene, she's kind of just had this veiled disdain this entire
Yeah,
time.
right.
But I remember what Prager looked like in that scene. I remember what the Rapunzel killer looked like, but I don't really have a distinct recollection of her.
She seemed to have like this sudden look of maybe surprise or even some empathy. Maybe she sees him as a more empathetic character than she expected. But once again, I'm not. This performance isn't really working for me, so I didn't really know how to read that, because then she goes right back to her
You know
very.
what? It
Nope.
just came back to me because I remember thinking, I was wondering if she was thinking about her mother
Right.
in
I
that.
thought that too, but
Yes.
I didn't. I felt the same way, that she was thinking about that, but I didn't understand how that tied into what he was saying, to be honest.
Maybe the idea, and it didn't occur to me at the time, but as I'm talking to you now, the idea of wearing a mask because she pretends to be someone else when she's with her mother.
True. And also that she's, seems to be uncomfortable, even though in this particular role, even though she's murderous here as well. Maybe she's the opposite. Maybe she's someone who does have a moral compass, but is made to kill people, right? She literally indirectly murdered Mia last week. Then again, Mia's a serial killer, so maybe she didn't feel that bad about that. But, she is responsible for these deaths multiple times.
Yeah, that Columbus Clubber thing was violent.
Yeah, exactly. And
But
we
maybe
still don't know how she
before,
disposed of that body, too.
we still don't know why there wasn't a camera in a bank parking lot, but
Correct.
uh maybe she was a elementary school teacher before all this happened, like she tells her mom she is.
Yeah, maybe that's what that'll be an interesting, career choice or pivot in her later years.
Yeah.
Anyway, all this backstory, this whole thing that came up with works. Later on, we see that Prater is totally buys into this, and he remembers. He's like, I was so moved, and so rarely that these different serial killers actually show any kind of aspect of themselves in the during these presentations. So he's moved by this, and it takes him all the way back to his origin story. And we find out we'd already known that he had been orphaned by a car accident when he was very young, but we hear his origin story that not only were his parents murdered and he witnessed it, but it turns out that the person who killed his parents wasn't just like a random drunk driver or an angry driver, aggressive driver, was actually a serial killer who had killed other people, I guess, vehicularly in the past, I would assume.
Yeah, that was a little unexplained. I mean,
Yeah.
I've not ever heard of a serial killer's MO being hitting people with their car, but I haven't done a deep dive on serial killers. Maybe.
Like Death Proof, the Tarantino movie Death Proof, that's how the serial killer kills people with his car. But I mean, other than that, other than the occasional movie, I don't think that's an actual, there's an actual real world analog, but who knows? But this moves him. And how do you read all this? That he maybe is obsessed with these killers because he was afraid of what he saw. He was afraid of being a kid. He says, I never wanted to be that scared kid again. So what do you think that represents?
I don't know. I guess it's some way of taking control over the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it is one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, if you say so, it doesn't
right
entirely track as a thing a human being would do, but okay.
Yeah, that would be the choice to make. So then I became friends with him, and I was closer to him at this very bizarre conversation he has here.
Yeah,
I mean, closer to this person than he ever was with his parents. Like, that's a very weird thing to say.
Yeah, like I can even understand being fascinated by serial killers. That is a fascinating subject, especially if you're not like too squeamish, right? But your parents serial killer? I mean,
right.
Wouldn't we all draw the line there?
Yeah. See, I would assume. So yeah, he's still a mystery to us. And I think there's another shoe that's going to drop with him, but I'm not sure where they're going to take his character before this is all over. So Dexter, once again, or in this particular case, says, hey, wow, look, honesty worked out perfectly for me in this context. I'm Prater's favorite right now. Maybe I'll keep that up. And I'm going to go over to Gareth or whoever this other twin's actual name is and say, hey, I figured out you're the Gemini killer. And he plays with his food a little bit here for a little while. He's like complimenting him, and he's like, he denies that they're twins, and then he's like, okay, well, you figured it out, and he's like, well, you know how I actually figured it out? I killed your brother last night, and then he kills this guy in broad daylight. I actually thought this was a very clever twist because you're thinking like, how are he going to keep killing these people and get away with it? And he's like, just do it in front of everybody.
Yeah,
don't hide it.
I mean, I was floored when he said honesty is the best policy or whatever. I thought he couldn't possibly mean he's actually going to say what happened here. Did you think he was really going to do it? Never mind the killing part, just even the disclosure of it.
No, I mean, I did not think he was going to tell him that he had killed his brother. I thought that
once he disclosed it, he kind of had to kill him.
Well, I had to, right? I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, I didn't, but I did not read this at all. I was thinking that he's trying to ingratiate himself, being like, "Oh, I'm smart like you." And then I know about your brother. And then they could be like, oh, let's go kill together tonight or something. Like he was just going to orchestrate something to get this guy alone. When he just said, no, I'm just going to try to orchestrate a murder right here in public so that I have accountability or deniability, I should say, where, I was attacked first. Right. And that whole thing it was very funny, but I thought it was smart. It's a smart way to go about it because if another person just disappears in the night, there's going to be even more questions.
Very clever. I agree.
So Prater's Pokemon collection here of serial killers is thinning out rapidly. I think Dexter is the collector, the real collector here of serial killers. He's doing much better job than Prater is. Was your son ever into Pokemon, by the way? Just speaking of Pokemon.
Yes, it waxes and wanes. We do have Pokemon cards. I don't think anybody in this house understands how they work, but there is some appeal to just possessing them and looking at them, apparently. So yeah, a little bit, but not, not one of those kids that wanted Pokemon apparel or a backpack or like that. He's not that into it, but just enough to want to have some cards.
Yeah.
How about your daughter?
I think they all go through that phase. My daughter also had Pokemon cards, just a few, and she had a Pikachu plush toy that she still.
Oh, I think we have one too. Yeah, I think so.
So that inevitably has to happen. And she's watched some of the cartoons and such, and she understands the basic mechanics of the card game, but she never really got into it because it's pretty complicated to have all these. But I was thinking about like serial killer Pokemon and how the different. Like, do you have like, is there like stealth mode for Dexter? Like, it could be like an interesting game you can invent here with the serial killer Pokemon cards. Another funny thing that's happening here when he's almost being killed, turned out the slash he got from the killer was nearly fatal. And all of this is very funny because in the meantime, he's like texting his son. Again, not doing a great job. These the Prater and company not doing a great job of, for example, you should confiscate these people's phone. Not only the first time they show up, you should confiscate their phones on a regular basis. And it's all of this is very strange. But he's texting his son and he's like, "Are you going to make it tonight, Dad? Dad, where are you? I'm at the college." He's doing a terrible job of multitasking. He says he can manage his time. He says he's a good multitasker. I'm not convinced by anything I've seen here in this season.
I mean, there are certain realities of space and time that you have to acknowledge. When you took a helicopter to get someplace, right. It's not like you're just going to dash downtown real quick to meet your kid at the college, right?
I also like the fact that it's like 4 hours away when he's texting him to say that he's going to he'll probably be on time. It's like, you just flew to an island. What do you mean 4 hours from now? You think he'd be back? I don't understand. He did need to eat meat here, though, by the way. So.
Yes, with the excuse of, it just looks so good. I can't be vegan any longer.
I wasn't always a vegan. I mean, was always a vegan, right? I guess not.
Somewhere, someone has always been a vegan, probably in Brooklyn. But yeah.
But it's a good thing Dad's not around because that means that Harrison gets to try his moves on this cute blonde. And talking about honesty is the best policy. His opening line here, which totally works, is my mom's been murdered and I shot my dad.
I killed my dad.
I killed my dad, which he kind of did, just temporarily.
Kind of did. So did you recognize that she is the blonde that was in the first season of Platonic?
Oh my God, I did. I was trying to place her and I forgot.
I was too. And in the middle, I had to pause it and do a deep dive because I'm going to send you the results that AI gave me when I said, who is playing Gigi on Dexter Resurrection? They could not be more wrong. So then, because AI failed me, I had to do a much deeper dive and finally got to the bottom of it. That yes, because I knew I recognized her from somewhere and I couldn't place it.
Yeah, I totally recognized her. I'm like, I've definitely seen this girl on something before.
Very distinct look.
I forgot to look it up, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I really liked her on Platonic. So glad to see she's still getting work.
Yeah.
And I mean, she does study criminology. So the morbid humor, where she thinks is morbid humor, but it's not really true. It's actually all true. Did work on her, of course. He does Dexter, that is, eventually does show up at the college. He does get helicoptered in just in time to catch the end of this presentation. And wouldn't you know it, it's Detective Wallace who's doing this presentation. And not only does Harrison show up, but then Dexter, who she just saw a picture of earlier that day, shows up as well. And I forgot to mention, of course, all the way at the beginning of the episode, Angel's been making his pitch that this is still related. And she's like, well, there's some deniability to any of these particular different things. There's explanations. And he says, go with your gut. I think she's really bending over backwards to try to make an explanation that doesn't tie Dexter into this because it's pretty strange coincidence. Oh, and one big clue, of course, she mentions is that the watch does not have Mia's fingerprints on it, although all the other objects have her fingerprints on it. So kind of strange that it doesn't seem like she cleans these mementos off. Why has the watch have no fingerprints on it, etc.? But of course, just when Angel planted that seed that she should keep pursuing the Harrison connection, Harrison walks in, and then Dexter walks in too. What a really morbid presentation she's making here, by the way, that this New York City Ripper is still not killing people anymore, actually, no longer active, but is still taunting his victims.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, could you imagine this is your criminology school, like you're just there for orientation, or not even orientation, you're just making a choice as to whether you want to, and this is what you, it's a way to scare away people. I guess you only keep the hardened ones around. So a couple questions I have for you in all of this. First of all, what do you think that is going through her head when she sees these two guys there? Of course, she actually addresses them. What do you think of how Harrison is absorbing this information, where she's saying that these people do not have emotions, you're not relating to them in the way that you think you are, and he seems to keep giving these side eyes over to Dad, like, Dad, is that how you are? Are you are? And another thing I want to ask you about, take these as you will, but who is the Ripper? There's no way they've making this big deal about the Ripper, and that Prater has the Ripper's tool in his, so he's met him, right? And that this isn't going to come back in some way on the show.
Wait. I don't think it's necessarily true. He's met him because Dexter's slides are there.
Oh, good point. Good point. But then they would think that, yes, that's a good point. Yeah, so he could have just bought the tool from somebody else. But you know why I think that's not the case, that he's actually met this person, is because she, the investigator, doesn't seem to know that the tool that the Ripper uses is that tool. He like basically pretends that he's doing his forensics thing, going like, have you ever thought it might be a different type of tool? So the fact that that tool ended up in Prater's possession, it seems like that's not something that people discovered and then they looked for it. It seems like it is something that was given to him that the police don't know about, because they seem to not know the actual tool that he's using to kill.
Interesting point. Perhaps.
And he is truly retired, of course, because he's given away his murderous weapon.
Well, I agree. They're doing a lot with this New York Ripper thing. And if you think about the people that we have met, there aren't that many that have no real, that don't already have a very well-established backstory that kind of rules them out. Could it be Prater?
I was thinking maybe Prater, because it would make sense that he himself was a killer, considering his fascination with killers. And of course, he may not want to announce that to everybody. And then he could also put his memento right in front of everybody. Like, look, here's the New York Ripper's tool. And of course, it would become, as he becomes so high profile, it would be very awkward for him to, of course, he's very distinctive as well. So to kind of continue to kill and not get noticed at some point. So that would make sense that that's his way of, and that could be his collection, right? Like, how all these other serial killers collect something, that is his collection, right? That's how he diverts his need to kill, with this collection of other killers around him. So yeah, I thought it could be Prater. The only other person, especially based on the voice we hear on the phone, that it could be, but it'll be a very weird thing to throw in here, but it's possible, is the landlord of the at the building, just because the kind of the voice matches. But that would be really bizarre to be like, by the way, not only am I a terrible landlord, I used to be a serial killer as well.
He was on The Sopranos. So
he was a Sopranos. So he did kill people back then. Yeah, but it has to be someone we've seen somewhere. So I was thinking, could it be, who could it be? Her partner? He's probably too young.
He's one of the only people that doesn't have an established backstory.
Yeah. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to bring up, and go ahead. No, finish what you're saying.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the other thing I was going to mention in that regard is, do you think, and this would be really messed up if it is her partner, do you think the girl, the surviving sister who gets taunted all the time, was this detective herself?
Interesting. Huh.
So she's playing like a voicemail that she received from the Ripper, and
Yeah,
that maybe
yeah,
that's
yeah,
why she's
yeah.
a detective, became a detective.
Interesting.
Could you imagine it is her partner and he's taunting her and then
Yikes.
working alongside her
Yikes.
the whole time? That would be really messed up twist if that was the case.
I mean, not a bad twist though.
Yeah. The reason I think it isn't, it's funny, that was my first thought. But then the reason I think it isn't is that I assume, and I could be wrong about this too, you made a good point that maybe he just got his hands on the murder weapon, that if he was the Ripper and he is working this investigation, that he would be looking into Dexter and the angel, and he would be communicating this back to Prater, right? That even if he didn't know that Dexter was in Prater's compound, that he might be like, hey, this is going on right now. By the way, like Mia, she's probably not the killer here. You may want to know about this. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
if there was a relationship between him and Prater. But maybe there's not. Maybe you could be right that maybe both things are true. And the weapon ended up in Prater's hands and he has not met Prater before. But I assume that the killer had met, or the Ripper had met Prater at some point in the future. Anyway, all that is to say that these things are going to come back. I don't know exactly how, but they're all coming back.
Yeah, it's too much time on it otherwise.
Right, right, exactly. And we have 3 episodes to go. There's no way that they're going to like spend this much time on this episode and then just disappear immediately afterwards. Dexter eventually does get home. Oh, before we get back to that, I did kind of throw 4 questions at you at once. What did you think of Harrison and how he first is wary of his dad, like this description of what a truly is a sociopath, and then his dad telling him, look, I may not have regular emotions, but I know that it's different with you. And also kind of like a tender moment where he says to his dad that actually my motivation to want to be a cop was you. And now I don't know if that means like, so I can catch people like you or if you're an inspiration, but either way, what did you think of all that?
Well, I think it's interesting in the regard we talked about before of Dexter has accepted as a fundamental principle in his life that they are different than each other, which may or may not be true.
Right.
And I think Harrison, fair to say, would still be absorbing and processing everything that he's learned in the last 3 or 4 months, right now,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a lot. Not only what he himself has done and gone through, but also what he's learned about his dad, and then the whole killing your dad and then he's alive, blah, blah, blah.
All of
So
that, yada, yada, yada.
I think it's all still being processed for Harrison. But as we are having this discussion and talking about how maybe Dexter's dad defined Dexter's own impression of himself, I think it might be a really lovely thing if then his son reshapes his own knowledge of who he is, right? The same way his dad placed these ideas upon him that, like, this is who you are and there's nothing that can be done. Maybe Harrison is going to introduce him to the idea that it doesn't have to be that way. And maybe there is a different way to live.
That would be really nice to see if the show continues that his
Heartwarming even, right?
it actually could be that, there could be a moment in the future where the show ends eventually, where the resolution is that Dexter is no longer a killer, that he is like this, that what he thought he was and the way he had been programmed before is reprogrammed through his relationship through his son and the example his son sets. I don't actually think that's going to happen.
I don't
but
think
it would
so
be, it would be
either.
nice. It would be nice for sure.
No, I don't think so either. But I am thinking about, and this is, I think, beyond what the show is trying to do or wants to do. But you and I have talked about a lot in the context of other things that we have watched and discussed, how when you have a child, so much of your relationship with your parents it comes to the front of your mind again when you had like pushed it to the back because now you're a grown up and those things are not so immediate. You realize certain things that you feel or think about the way the parents raised you and that you want to either do things the same or do things differently because of the effect they had on you, right? So I think it would be very natural and human for Dexter's experience raising Harrison to bring those things to the forefront and make him examine those things in a way that he hadn't before. He had just accepted them as true. because you just accept that your parents know best and are telling you what is true and correct, especially when they pass away when you're young. You never have a chance to revisit it with them.
Right.
Like, I think there's a lot that could be examined there, but I don't think the show wants to.
Right. That would be
And
too
that's fine.
complicated. Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I mean, it does raise these points in its own way. I just don't know how deeply they're going to explore them.
Right.
But I mean, they're trying at least. That's something. Dexter eventually does get back home, and he hears some salsa upstairs. Blessing and the family are listening to salsa, and at first he's like, that's weird that he's listening to salsa. And he thought, wait a second, there's only one person who could be listening to salsa in New York City, Angel. And they head upstairs, and this sequence made me laugh, where Angel and him are playing out this whole, like, having this conversation in public. And I think it's supposed to be, the tonal shift is supposed to be like ominous in some way, but it just made me laugh that they're like, oh, how you're teaching them salsa, huh? And it's like this threatening tone that Angel tries to take with him. It just made me laugh.
Everything had a double meaning that they were saying to each other. I wish I had written down the dialogue, but I didn't. But all of it, like, you were always very lucky. And like, there was a few.
Right. You're always good at ingratiating yourself with people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But all of this, I found it funny. And of course, like, yeah, let me give you a ride home. And then they have this completely non-veiled, I mean, it's still kind of a veiled conversation in the car, which is kind of funny because, like, of course.
Also a funny cut of like, we'll catch up on the ride back, and then cut to them sitting in silence in the car.
Right. I mean, that is the most awkward conversation you could have with anybody. It's like, all right, I know you're a serial killer. Let's just get that out of the way right now. And he kicks him out eventually. And but Bautista left his earbuds in the car, so we know what that means. He can trace him on the iCloud. By the way, have you ever done this where somebody is with you who has like a device? So I have my daughter, if I put like in her backpack, I put my earbuds in there when we're hiking or something, it makes a noise. It like rings. And on your device, it will say like you're traveling with somebody else's, and it tells you who the person is, like this other iCloud device. So, or the account. So the reason I mentioned that is because this is, maybe that's before I think they made that change recently, because people were actually using Apple devices to track each other, right? Like you could stalk somebody by leaving an earbud in their car or something. You can imagine like having an old one. If you get new ones, you can literally just throw one into someone's car and then use it to track. So it makes this sound, so and it warns you on your device. This only happened like a year ago or so. So maybe they wrote this before that change occurred, but I'm just letting you know that if Dexter updates his iPhone, he's going to start getting a lot of notifications being like, wait a second, Angel, whatever at iCloud.com has his earbuds in my car.
I have gotten that warning as well. And it was about a year ago as well that I got it. And I did think that this particular device, I mean, I don't know how they'll play this out. It feels like Dexter would notice that those were there, but I could be wrong. I mean, especially like the bright white against the black. I will also say an AirTag, I don't think gives you the same alert. So
yeah, this is his earbuds though, but good point. He could have just put an
he should have used an AirTag. That's what I'm saying.
If he thought ahead, he could have put an AirTag on the car for sure. Yeah. That would be the smarter thing to do. He could literally just have put it on the car when he was inside, instead of trying to teach a Blessing how to do the salsa. He could have just should have been thinking ahead.
Just stuck that in the wheel well or whatever.
Exactly. And what else we got here? That's about it. What do you think we get to next week? I assume that Angel's going to be tracking his movements. I don't think he's going to immediately be with Prater again, or maybe he will. Maybe he's just going to be like, where's he headed to? He's going to start following him from a distance. He's going to see him with Prater and these other people and be like, what the hell? What are these people doing? So I assume that is going to be what we see next week. Angel doing more investigative work, and maybe putting himself in danger. And especially if Prater and company start to notice that he is around, and Dexter might have to end up having to protect him as well.
I mean, my big question here is, do you think Angel will survive this season?
I was thinking the same thing. I don't know. There's two possible ways around this. One is I could imagine that Angel eventually, or even this detective eventually see that Dexter, if they like, for example, catches the Ripper and catches these other serial killers, and he helped them catch Mia, that she sees, well, maybe there's some benefit. Like she basically take on Dexter's ghost dad's perspective that he is a necessary evil in a way. And that's how it ends. The other one, I unfortunately feel the same way. I feel like I actually wrote down in my notes that there's a lot of sacrificial lambs around now. What I'm worried about, I'm worried that like this blonde girl is going to put her hair in a ponytail and he might be targeted by Al at some point. That it could be the girl.
Don't put your hair up, Gigi.
Just Gigi, keep your hair down, please. It looks good down anyway. Don't put it in the ponytail. But there's just too many sacrificial lambs laying around. And by the way, one of those sacrificial lambs is Harrison himself, right? It could be like if they find out who Dexter is, and this is where it comes down to the idea that Dexter's being pretty selfish and not even letting Harrison know just how dangerous the situation he is in. Because think about it, every time he goes out with the serial killers, he's like, or Ghost Dad warns him that he may not survive the day. And meanwhile, he's like, see you in half an hour, Harrison. So it's like, he's not all on the up and up here. And
one point, which is not directly relevant, but I just remembered because of something you said with the sacrificial lambs, we thought they were telegraphing something with Gemini.
Yeah.
Killing parents and their teenage children, but apparently not. So,
right.
So I don't know. Maybe they just want us to worry.
Yeah, I think that definitely is the case.
Yeah,
that they want us to consider those things. But I mean, who do you think would die? Who do you think? Obviously, at this point, there's no doubt. We had some question earlier on. Is this literally going to be like each one of these serial killers going to get killed off, which was kind of the formula for the original Dexter, right? I'm like, well, it would be way too suspicious, raise too many alarms. But at this point, we're only down to 2. So I think
Rapunzel seemed like he was going home too, right? He kind of ran away screaming.
True. So yeah, that's a good point. So now that he is like, I'm out of here, then now Dexter can kill him off, and maybe without it being like on the grounds with Prater and stuff, which of course be too obvious. But then the question remains, does he continue? I think he almost certainly will continue to hang out with Prater, and Prater now has this connection with him, and that whole revelation that he feels connected to him after that, his honesty in that presentation. So I assume he's going to try to circle back and take out Prater as well. I guess that's going to be the case. But I think in the next episode, we may very well see him kill Rapunzel. And he would deserve it. It's a scumbag. He's a scumbag. Should die. Just my opinion. I don't want to be controversial, but
I know your wife wears a ponytail sometimes. So this
yes, she does. Whenever she works out.
Yes. For you.
We got to take this guy out. Off the street.
Too dangerous.
Way too dangerous. Yeah, and that's it. I did find some of this comedy here. I love the that whiplash of Dexter walking in. They're all learning salsa, and then all of a sudden, Angel turns around and is like, Dexter. One of those.
And the whole, I'm just remembering snippets of the dialogue. I'm glad I caught you, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything had a double meaning.
Yeah, that whole thing was great. Yeah. Then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wouldn't he be more? Shouldn't he be more overt about things and like warn Blessing, for example? But like, no, you don't want to have him running yet. He still wants to like lay a trap and see what Dexter's up to. So all of that was, So I kind of understand. Like, you don't want to necessarily, for example, burn bridges between him and Blessing, so he has to move out of the house, because then you have, he doesn't know where he is anymore. I did like some of the other things, just going back to that scene again. I like when the daughter's like, oh, keeping secrets, Dexter, huh? You were a police officer back in Miami. Yes. Yeah, that's the secret he's keeping. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And I've been dead for decades, so it's little minor things like that. I mean, I guess she did know about that, right? Because she ran his background.
I'm sorry, say that again. I think I missed that point.
When the daughter ran his records when he came on as a tenant, and
Yes.
she questioned the fact that he had this different identity in the past, and he was honest with her, saying like, well, this terrible things happened. I needed to move
Oh,
on with my
right. I
life
had
and whatnot.
forgotten about that. Yeah. Okay.
It was very cursory. She didn't like she go and like she found out that he had a previous name without actually digging into the whole any more detail. Oh yeah, your wife was murdered and you were a cop. Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty tough. Oh, and then your sister, and they thought you died when you drove your sister into that storm. Hmm. Interesting biography you have there. And your son was raised by some woman in another country, and then she died, and he hitchhiked all the way home. Interesting. Interesting. This guy's got quite the backstory. All right, 3 more episodes to go. And then Task, we'll do a preview of that at some point in the future. Now that we know the release date, I'm sure we'll be seeing more about it. HBO will be ramping up. That'll be their big fall series, I'm sure. And yeah, looking forward to that. All right, Sona, thank you again for the conversation.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.